Today's episode of WTF is sponsored by Audible. Go to audiblepodcast.com/WTFpod to get a free audiobook download. Before we get started today, let me take a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website builder, domain names, custom design, and great customer support. Squarespace takes care of it all. If you want the fastest way to create a high-quality website or blog, you have to use Squarespace. They have an award-winning design team, and there are hundreds of options to make it easy for you to create and customize your site. It's a drag-and-drop system, so it's as simple as moving things around the page, and then you can preview it immediately. Your site will look great on any smartphone, tablet, or computer. So go set up your own website using Squarespace and then send the link to WTFpod@gmail.com, and I'll plug the best ones right here on the show. For a free trial, go to squarespace.com, click enter an offer code under pricing at checkout, and use the offer code WTF5. That's WTF and the number 5. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website. Now on to the show.
Lock the gate!
Okay, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears, what the fuck nicks? This is Marc Maron. This is WTF. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to my show. I feel purged. I feel relieved. Me and the gal went to a little couples counseling hoedown, and I squirted out a few tears. I left feeling like my heart's asshole is bleeding. So that's good. That's a good session, man. I leveled it out. Thank God, I got her there, and we're working stuff out. And as I told you before, we're actually seeing a couple of therapists who are a couple. It's fucking beautiful. It's like a very intense hour of cocktails. How would you describe it? It's not a dinner party. It's not hors d'oeuvres. It's not a snack. It's two couples sitting down to hash out one couple's problems while the other couple listens, and they are professionals. I know it sounds strange, but it was pretty good. And there's nothing wrong with crying in front of your girlfriend and another couple. If you're paying for it and it's helpful somehow. I guess we'll see in the long run if it is. It's good to open that thing up. It's good to open the heart, and let it just kind of bleed out a little bit, kind of purge its butt, because I think the heart's got an ass, and you've just got I don't know, maybe this metaphor isn't really holding up. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I feel good. When I went in there, things weren't good, because I'm nuts. And when I left, I think I'm still nuts, but I think I released a little bit. I released a little of my craziness right out of my heart's asshole, which is what the heart's asshole is for. Unfortunately, it had to, we all had to reach in there and get it. So there was a little tissue tear, but I'm all right. Too graphic? Is it too graphic? Should I do it in another voice? Should I make a character up? Maybe I should make a character up that's my heart. Hey, pal. Don't try and fucking get in here, all right? This is on lockdown, all right, buddy? The only time I'm squirting out of you is for commercials, cat problems, and when you're talking to someone you don't know that well, it tells you a good story. Outside of that, nope. Hey, ow! Ow! Who? Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay. All right. I'm fine now. I'm okay. I'm glad we opened me up. See, apparently my heart is a little effeminate. Don't tell anybody. On the show today, Phil Hendrie is here. Phil Hendrie, the legendary Phil Hendrie of radio. One of the great radio artists, I'd like to call him that, a radio artist. He's a talk show host, but now he has his own podcast, but he's a pioneer of the medium in a lot of ways. He did something that he created an entertaining show that he peopled with voices from his own face that you can't tell. It's a seamless transition. You can't even explain what Phil Hendrie does. He takes callers and then he invents callers in the moment, improvises it all, and he interacts with the person he's creating in the moment by some tricks in the studio that are all sort of organic tricks. They're not complicated tricks. And then he lets that fake caller that he's making up in the moment engage with the real caller and himself. If you've never heard Phil Hendrie, you really got to listen to it because there's nobody quite like him. And this guy's been at it for years. He's a radio veteran and a fucking genius at it. And I think he's appreciated, but he's underappreciated in the way that not enough people know who Phil Hendrie is. And I love talking to professionals, man. I like talking to professionals of any kind. You know, guys who have paid their dues and have a specific and honed and amazing talent, yet are just people. I think that's one of the interesting things that I learned the more of these shows that I do. You know, I was telling you guys the other week, John Fogerty's another example. Like I've actually been fielding a little feedback lately that people are like, hey, you know, you have no right to complain. You're living the life. You know, I went to see John Fogerty the other night, but as some of you know who listen to the podcast, it was I was asked to introduce him. And I was under the impression that it would be like just a straight up Bill Graham-y kind of like, you know, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. But no, they wanted me to take care of some business to set up the show. It was a record release party. It was John's 68th birthday. It was also the 45th anniversary of the release of the first Creedence Clearwater record. His family was there. You know, I set up a video, and, you know, I didn't realize that that's what I was getting into, but it was a pleasure to do it, and I got to see an amazing show. I mean, the guy is 68 years old, and he rocked that fucking place down. And, you know, we're doing some rehearsals. I'm watching him rehearse, and then, you know, I got to talk to him. His kids were there. Two of his boys play on stage with him for a few songs. One plays a few other songs. But whatever the case is, whatever life that it may seem like I'm leading, like after an hour or two with somebody, you really are dealing with the person. This is a person with an extraordinary talent. Obviously, I love the guy, you know, and obviously I fanboyed out a bit on the John Fogerty interview. But after a certain amount of time, the beautiful thing about people that you revere and that people that you put on a pedestal or people that you think are geniuses or inaccessible or anything else, they're just people. The best you can hope for is that they're decent people and they're pleasant, you know. All right, before I forget, I'll be at the Ice House right here in the Los Angeles area in Pasadena on June 2nd. Come out. Let's have some fun. Dave Anthony's going to be there with me. And next week, next Thursday, I'll be in Phoenix at Stand Up Live on June 6th. So those are two very immediate gigs. The Ice House, L.A. All right? Okay, so I'll give you the rest of the dates later. Folks, this month our sponsor, LegalZoom, is celebrating innovation by helping you launch your dream. You know who launched their dreams here in America? Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, Marc Maron. Third person myself. That's right. I lumped myself in there with those guys. We made America. And LegalZoom helps people like us register your trademark to protect your products and services, incorporate or form an LLC, and launch your business dream. Just call or visit LegalZoom.com, and they'll take care of you from start to finish. They've already helped about 1 million businessmen get started right. And for a limited time, get a special price on trademark, copyright, and patent applications by using the referral code Marin at checkout. Protect your creations and launch your dream at LegalZoom.com. As usual, I'm reminding you that LegalZoom is not a law firm, but they can provide self-help services at your specific direction, or they can connect you to an attorney. Don't forget to use that referral code, Marin. I got to go over there. I got to make a will. Where's that money going to go? You don't want to sit there. Got no kids. What, are they going to give it to the cats? What is Monkey and LaFonda going to do with my my meager savings? Not meager. I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. Couple of things I want to get out there. Again, thank you for watching Marin on IFC. I'm glad those of you who enjoy the show. I'm getting a lot of wonderful feedback, and it makes me happy that the show is resonating with you. Also, thank you for buying my book, Attempting Normal. I appreciate that. That is still available. Okay? It's still available, and I'd like you to have it. And you know what? One of our sponsors today is Audible. So you know the deal. You go to audible.com/WTFpod. You get the free download, right? You know. Where am I getting at? They have over 100,000 audio products, including my book, Attempting Normal. You go to audiblepodcast.com/WTFpod. You get a free download. Why not make it my book? And I want to give away a free copy of the Attempting Normal audiobook to one of you. Here's who gets it. Whoever sends me the best combination of a book and the person reading the book on Audible. Like Attempting Normal is read by me. But imagine if it was read by David Sedaris.
That's not mouth cancer. I couldn't have mouth cancer. Anger. Fuck, I have mouth cancer. What else could it be? Bargaining. God, I know I don't really believe in you, but please let this not be mouth cancer. I will do anything. Depression. I have mouth cancer. It's over. I wish I could die now. Then finally acceptance. Maybe I don't need my mouth.
Huh? Right? So go find something like that on Audible and email me at WTFpod@gmail.com, and the best one will get a free audiobook of Attempting Normal. And don't forget, go to audiblepodcast.com/WTFpod for a free download. The offer is only good in the United States and Canada. And yes, David is going to be on the show. And yes, he only read very specific certain beats, but it was very flattering to have that happen in front of me. He will be on the podcast soon. Phil Hendrie's on today. Phil Hendrie. I'll tell you, man, the first time that I heard Phil on the radio, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. But I was hysterical laughing. He had created a character about it. It was a father talking about his kid who didn't have spring in his step. And Phil just kept hitting this thing. It's like, he's got no spring in his step. You know, like it was a repetition. He's just got an innate genius for improvising. I got to work on voices. I think that, you know, like after talking to Jonathan Winters, you talk to people, you know, Fred Armisen a bit, anyone who does voices, you know, it'd be really nice to sort of just embody, you know, to live, you know, to sort of express the fragile or angry or whatever the parts of you that make you uncomfortable as a character would be amazing. I don't know. I think Phil does that to a certain degree. Certainly Jonathan did. He spoke to it. There's a therapy to it. I'm going to start working on a series of characters, you know, representing my character flaws. You know? Like the fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. Yeah, I'm going to make, that's it. The fuck that guy. Who? Fuck that guy. That guy? Fuck that guy. That's pretty good. It's a good start to a character. Look, let me get the pro on here. Let's talk to Phil Hendrie. Well, you were talking just as we walked in here that no one knew that this was going to take off. I had no idea what it even was. I just knew I had to keep doing something.
Yeah. But you have, Mark, you're, along with Adam, Chris Hardwick, Rogan, you guys are the monster four or the five, or there's always this. It's like the Premier League in English soccer, which for some reason I'm following now. There's 4 teams, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff, you know.
Right.
But you guys are the big four. You know, you're like winning the league every year.
I'm trying to hold on. You know, I'm just doing my little thing here.
But so, can I ask you?
Yeah,
so in other words, what you did is you just did this because you had to do something. And you had a sponsor lined up, or you were...
Well, what happened with me was, you know, I had done a little bit of radio.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of years, and I took to it, and I liked it. And then, obviously, in radio, as you know, you get fired, and then you move on to some other microphone. And I'd been fired for the last time, and I knew this existed. So when we started, there was no business model. There was no really expectation. I just knew that I had nothing else going on, and I knew comics were doing this.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna try it. Yeah. And then things started to unfold. When you got into it, though, had you been... I mean, you were at radio for a while.
Oh, yeah, man. I've been doing this kind of show that I do. I've been doing a comedy show, if you want to call it that, satire, for about 22 years.
Right. No, of course. I know that.
And then I did podcasting as a way of escaping radio. I guess it's the same thing as you, only I got fired and or you know, I lost my contract, and then I got in with a really horrible company, which I'm with right now. And I realized that there was this, as I was tied up with this freaking deal, the rest of you guys were out here like actually having fun. So I thought, well, I got to do some of that, you know.
Well, it's interesting how long it takes, you know, some of the radio warriors, the guys that have been, because it's weird in radio, you know, you get used to that system.
Yeah.
Where you know, if you've got a good audience and they're pulling numbers for the station, they fucking take care of you.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it becomes challenging for dudes who are ingrained in that to be like, so I'm just going to wing it now? I'm just going to...
I'm going to wing it, and what do I do for sponsors? Well, just, you know, you're on your own. Go ahead, man.
Go ahead, call the guys.
Call them up, yeah.
They know who you are.
Yeah.
Have you found that you can do that? You can call the sponsors? It's me, Phil.
I haven't really yet because I'm still sort of half locked into the radio. I've got I would just as soon, if I was not going to offend anybody, call them up myself and say, hi, it's Phil Hendrie, and generally, you know, I got to watch it because who knows? You know, I'll never forget I had a meeting with. Whenever I meet with grown-ups, like I had a meeting with ABC, Lloyd Braun, and those guys. I meet with these grown-ups, and I said, and there's these network guys that go, well, my idea is to have a guy who hates Jews. And so right away, the whole room is gone. And I walked out of there. My agent said to me, Don Buchwald, he said, well, that was interesting. Yeah, just never seen that happen, you know. So
it reminds me of a time I went in. I was being looked at for a talk show. I was early on in my career, and I was full of rage, and I was doing angry comedy.
Yeah,
and they were looking at me to do like a network talk show. And I met Bridget Potter, who was a big deal at NBC, brought me into to one of the big guys. And he's everyone knows that guy. I don't remember his name. It was before Zucker, but he was a known guy.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, what do you talk about? What are we going to do on this talk show? I'm like, AIDS, war, abortion, the issues.
Right.
And there was a look on his face like I had just kicked him in the soul. And that was it. That was the end of that. Yeah. And Bridget walked out and said, that was very interesting.
Good. No, really, you showed who you were. Yeah. That's always important to show who you are. Well,
it takes a long time to realize that there's politics involved at every level, and there's a certain amount of diplomacy and things you shouldn't say to get what you want.
Yeah, I wonder why that. I wonder if the reality, is the reality this, that they should accept what we're saying to them, or is the reality that we have to come around to their way of thinking? What is? I know what business is about.
Let's look at history.
But what's audience about? See, in other words, I know what business is about, but what's audience about? In other words, if everybody had said, I'll go back to Lenny Bruce, who sort of to me is like the beginning. He's the sort of beginning of modern comedy.
Right.
If they just had said, this guy's great, and let's let him just do what he does, and they hung with it, would they have been richer today than they are?
Well, that's a good question. And it's also what culture will tolerate. I think the biggest fear, it seems, on behalf of corporations and whoever represents them, that there's always this second guessing going on. Like, well, what's the audience going to like? Are we going to hear back from the people that hate this? Like, always the most vocal idiots that will derail anything are really the minority.
That's what's happening in talk radio now. That's what's killing talk radio. I don't know if you know, but talk radio, news talk is dying, and the word out there is that I just talked to because my contract is coming up.
Yeah.
And I talked to my agent, a guy named Eric Weiss, is a great guy. Eric said to me, in all candor, news talk is dead. And sports, that's what they want now. So why is News Talk dead? Because the sponsors are fleeing because I don't need the problem. Well, Eddie, it's only 3 guys. I don't care if it's 3. I don't want it. I don't need it.
Exactly.
They're getting a lot of...
Right.
So they're going over to Sports Talk, which is controversy-free in that sense, but it's still active and it's heated and people are passionate.
Well, it's weird, though, because the sports model on radio, I just did a sports show, because now when I go do comedy, they're like, well, we got the biggest show in the morning is this sports show. I'm like, I don't fucking know anything out of sports. They're like, no. It's about everything. They're just calling it sports.
They're calling it sports.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So they're integrating anything into that, because they're all very, very right up front. They're like, no, we talk about anything.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be the model now. It's almost like we can hide... we can hide talk in a sports format.
What they're hiding is the fact that it's not sports, but they're not going to tolerate if you got into AIDS, if you got into anything that's going to get the Mothers Against Mark, the religion. So what we're talking about really is guy talk. It's 25, 54 males.
Right.
And so, of course, sports is one of those areas, but as we used to say, Neil Rogers, I mentioned him earlier, he was a guy that was on a sports station middays.
Yeah.
This guy's gay. Mm-hmm. Neil was out. Gay, but was a hockey fan and a Cubs fan and a harness racing fan. But he also liked Luis Miguel because he just had a fantasy about the guy, and he had a cardboard cutout in the studio. He said, I'm going to get up and mount that thing. Something good's happened to me today. I don't know what it is. But he went
against... Did his listeners know that?
Everything. Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. And but Neil, it was amazing. He was out gay guy, but very butch and very... I went to a hockey game with him, and there he was in his jacket with his cigar and his boyfriend, and suddenly it was all totally cool.
Right.
Like, this is my gay friend. See?
Yeah,
it's okay.
Gay guys are like us.
Yeah, sure. See?
Yeah.
So, but the point being, that was a guy that came on and lived his life on the radio, but it was on a sports station. And so, as long as you stay away from, Neil didn't do this, but as long as they're staying away from things that get sponsors crazy. So you're on that show, and if you were talking about anything that had a sponsor call up, oh, Christ, you'd have a general manager in the office, in that guy's studio.
So when you started, I mean, like, I have not talked to a lot of radio dudes, and having had some experience with radio dudes, because I came into radio later in life, it wasn't, and I liked it. But
you were doing comedy first, stand-up.
I did.
First?
Yeah, I did a lot of stand-up, and then when Air America happened, I was out here, and someone called me. It was sort of this ragtag bunch of comics and commentators who were now being offered a lot of liberal investor money.
Yeah.
And someone called me. I think it might have been Garofalo or somebody said, "You want to be part of this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I don't like Bush. I'd love to have a voice in this, and this seems like a good opportunity." So that's what sort of started it.
Okay.
But I was completely green, and I was working with radio veterans, and I had no idea. I had no idea for momentum or working or teasing or checking it with the time or any of these sort of reset. The setting up people again after. I just had no
TSL, all that shit.
Right, none of the tricks.
Yeah.
But dealing with them, it's a whole other world in itself, and it's an amazing business, but it's also a very powerful mic, and people who live on this mic, it's hard to say. As you'll notice with podcasting, everyone thinks they can do it, but what makes somebody come through? That's the lightning in the bottle, and you can't sort of see how that's going to go.
That's what everybody would say back when I was struggling. I remember one of my program directors, Tom Yates, said to me, "You got to be heard above the noise, man. It's like what can you do? It's a great. I'm looking at what you do, Mark, and you're a comic, but you're also a guy that talks thoughtfully about things, and you engage people. So it's not like shtickaroo.
No shtick.
There's humor, but there's there's conversation.
Sure.
What it turned out for me was I knew that I was in love with doing radio, and I liked doing characters, and that just came out not because I was sitting there thinking, I wonder what will win in this medium. I was thinking, how can I have some fun today, man? I want to come in and enjoy my life.
Well, where did it start, though? It
started after getting fired a bunch of times. Well, I grew up out here in Arcadia, not too far from where we are, and hung out in Pasadena, and came from all of that stuff. And went to Florida. I was working in construction work, and I finally had a gig. And I was down in Orlando.
There's something about Florida. Things happen in Florida,
and I saw that before most any. Now everybody says. There's a Florida file with FARC. There's the president, and there's the economy. Florida. Yeah. And when I was in Miami, I remember that was a gauntlet I ran that was as tough as any I've ever run in talk radio.
Talk about the Wild West.
Oh, these cats, the radio listeners, people are in Miami for one reason: to get high, to enjoy themselves, to swim, to not to fucking talk politics,
to be under the radar.
Yeah. So you go on the radio down there, and you better bring something that's pretty good. And
so you're working construction.
I was working in construction in Orlando, and I got into this little gig in Orlando, and I was a disc jockey gig, and
just spinning vinyl,
spinning vinyl, literally, and carts and trying to find my voice as a radio personality, as they call it.
This was on the FM dial?
No, this is AM. In 1973, it was the very unfortunate caller, WBJW 1440. And they also had a WKIS in town. So there's a KISS at 740, but you get a BJ at 1440, which is...
So what were you spinning? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, Perry Como.
No!
I was just thinking the other day, the song that I came to hate...
So easy listening...
It was chicken rock. So we played, it would get as heavy as the Bellamy Brothers' Let Your Love Flow. It would go to, and then Delta Dawn. Now, Delta Dawn's a song that, it's very jarring. Delta Dawn. And every hour on the top of the hour, I was playing that, so I came
Who was
to
that? It wasn't Bobby Gentry.
Helen Reddy.
Helen Reddy did Delta. That's right.
Yeah.
I remember the AM radio when I was a kid.
Dude.
So you were one of those guys.
Yeah, and then I got into FM around 76. I was doing oldies but goodies, middle of the road. Did oldies but goodies in upstate New York. Came back to Orlando and did. Then I got into album rock.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I remember when I was in 7th grade. So that would probably be 1975, 76. And we all listened to KQEO AM, Bobby Box. We had a dance at our school, and Bobby Box, the voice, he was coming to host the dance. The man turned out to be about 5 feet tall. He's wearing a plaid suit. He had big blown dry hair, and it was like, that can't be the guy.
Oh, no.
Did you have a moment like that where you were like, you saw a radio guy, and you were like, no, that is not the guy.
And it got me excited, and that moment was when I rode my bicycle to KRLA, which used to be over at the Ritz-Carlton, the Pasadena Langham.
Yeah.
KRLA was there, and I used to ride my bike over from Arcadia, and I walked in there one day because they were used to kids just coming in 1966.
You listened to the station?
I listened to it, because we grew up out in the San Gabriel Valley. That was all KRLA country.
Yeah. And what kind of music was that?
Top 40, If you lived out at the beach, out at the L.A. beaches, or in L.A., it was KHJ and KFWB. So I ride my bike, and I used to listen to a guy named Emperor Hudson, Bob Hudson.
Yeah.
And this is, get off the freeway, peasants. His Highness is coming, and I'm in the leopard skin room. He did a little bit of a Jackie Gleason thing.
Yeah.
And Rosie, why don't you come in here, and we'll rub ourselves together and make fire, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there's a cat in a leopard skin room. I'm 12 years old. I get off my bike. I will look through the glass. There's a guy in a sweatshirt. He's in his bedroom slippers.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm not even going to get dressed. I'll just go into the station. It was Emperor Hudson. It was Bob Hudson. And I thought that was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
You weren't disappointed?
Not at all. I was like, God damn! I was a little white boy from Arcadia, but suddenly I turned into just a kid right off the streets of Harlem. Just damn!
Yeah.
Look at a man did this.
Yeah.
You know. I'm sorry, son. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot my roots. But I was fascinated. I said, I got to do that. This is great. You can do all kinds. You can create things.
Right. The power of the illusion of this.
Yeah.
It's the only medium that you can pull it off in anymore at all. Because like when I first heard on vinyl, I heard the War of the Worlds, the Orson Welles thing.
Of course, yeah.
And the precedent that set. I mean, and it never really was. I don't think anyone's approached it to quite the
Not to
level,
that dramatic level. No.
But the fact that, and that's why I like audio. That's why I don't do a video podcast or anything else, because the intimacy and the ability to create a world. And I don't do it. I don't do a lot of textures. Yeah. I've had some guests where people didn't know if they were real or not, but you can get away with murder, and people they take to it because it's such a one-on-one thing. So your experience when you meet that guy is not like, oh, I've been duped, but like, I'm gonna.
I was coming at it the way probably you would have, and any other kid that was looking to get into entertainment on some level. You're looking almost like you're only 12, but you're still sort of a technician. You're in school.
Yeah.
And you're going, wow, look what he did, and he's creating this thing. That is awesome, what he was able to. So I immediately realized that you can create a whole movie, just as you said, Mark.
Sure.
You know, a $40 million movie with a couple of sound effects. You know,
that's it. It's fucking mind blowing.
Totally. And I got so disappointed because when I got into radio in '73, it was when the computer list was coming in, and they were saying, just play the records. Just shut up and play the records. Boy, I used to piss me off hearing that. Shut up and play the records. What
was like when you first started in '73 and you were just playing songs? I mean, because I'm trying to remember some of the dudes to sort of get in for a few minutes.
If you want to talk about the great personalities of the '70s, Don Imus,
right,
and Real Don Steele was still happening, although he was, he's great. I mean, here in L.A., Don Steele was the because that cat had timing, and he could get in the call letters. The Rascals' Good Lovin', which starts up basically 1, 2, 3, right?
Yeah, right.
He could cram in KHJ Los Angeles in that one. KHJ Los Angeles. But Jackson Armstrong up in Buffalo.
Those are the skills.
Yeah, those are the skills, and the ability to ad-lib and hit that post. You're vamping a song, you're ad-libbing, you're hitting the post, and you're doing it you're not just hitting the post, man. You're doing it just cunt hair, just right up to, and the timing is great, and you know where to hit the post. It's an amazing thing to hear when you understand it.
Right. The post being right before the vocal starts.
When the vocal starts, yeah.
That's I think the thing that people don't really understand about radio and about live radio, and one of the things that I learned entering a morning show. And, I got chosen to drive this morning show. Granted, it wasn't the most popular thing in the world. I never really was a Stern guy. I didn't listen to Stern. I'm just a guy, like, I listen to the news.
Right.
I don't listen to a lot of entertainment radio. So I'm in this thing. And this is having been a comic for a while and having done morning radio where you walk into a morning show and you got to do something.
Yeah,
but like I never understood their side of it until I sat behind that mic, because when you're doing a radio show and you got a crew and you guys are moving at a clip and you got a momentum going and it's fucking 6:30 in the morning and you got a guest coming in, that guy better not shit the bed on your fucking momentum or he can go fuck himself.
Right.
It's like, you're on the mic, do something.
Yeah.
I'll do all I can, but if you don't do something, you're an asshole and you fucked up our morning.
And you will be called an asshole, and you're going to be burned down.
That's right.
For it,
that's right.
Because you got to do something. You got to make that happen. A lot of what the unfortunate part is, if you're an artist, if you're a radio artist, an audio artist, and thank God that we have podcasts because people are rediscovering there is an art form to it. All right, that's one thing. Now, if you're dealing with radio executives, and they know who they are, and they're hearing me right now, you guys know who you are, and you know that you're sexy shit, and it's okay. I still love you, but you guys don't understand what we do. You never fucking will. They'll come into the studio while you're driving this bus, trying to make sure it doesn't careen off, and they'll say, why don't you try that? And why don't you do that? Howard, and they'll do that to you. You know what Stern's doing?
Yeah.
So then because you're not Howard Stern,
right,
you try to be Howard Stern.
Right. Now
you run afoul of the FCC, this, that, and that's the same fucking guy that came in, and now he's telling you you're fired. And now you develop an attitude, and then they wonder why you have an attitude over 20 years,
Yeah.
What you should have done is said, "Get the fuck out of my studio," or not "Get the fuck." Please, sir, leave my studio. You're fired because you didn't take my input. Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. I know I'm fired, but you go to the next station and you still hold your ground, and you still hold your ground. That's the way to do it, I thought.
What? Right. Well, that happened later. But so when you're first listening to guys and you're understanding that there's a timing involved, and then people like Don Imus, all of them were working in between songs at some point in time. Yeah. Talk radio did not exist. Correct.
Talk radio, not the way it does now. It didn't deal with humor. Talk radio dealt with there were a couple of guys that were funny, but they were still talking about the issues. There were a couple of people who were outrageous, Joe Pine or Bob Grant, but they were still talking issues. When we got into the really stylized stuff, I would say, and you got to separate the politics from the execution. Let's forget about Rush's politics for a minute, because I think that blinds people.
But he was a music guy at first, right?
He was a music guy, and when he started doing a talk show, he brought stuff to the table he brought drops, the drop, he brought the bits like a homeless update. He brought Mervyn Snerdley. He brought EIB. This is all visual, stuff that we're talking about, like Emperor Hudson. No one in talk radio done that before.
And this was before you started doing voices.
It was before I started doing my show. Yeah. I heard what Rush was doing, not his politics. I didn't give a fuck about that. But I heard that he was bringing personality back to radio by way of talk radio. Then I heard what Howard was doing, obviously. I heard of cats like Neil Rogers in Miami. I thought, this is what I got to do, man. I got to get out of music.
And this is after doing spinning discs for how long?
From 73 to 88.
So you were really in. You had been. And how many times you had to walk? How many times did you?
Oh, dude, I've been fired from radio gigs for about 7-8 times.
Well, I mean, we should talk about that a little bit, because the only guy I really talked to about that was Jimmy Kimmel, and that people don't understand that when you have a mic. When you go to work, you don't know you're going to be fired until the end of your show, and then you are escorted out of the building. And you can't be on mic anymore.
That's right. They're afraid of you being on mic.
This was the beautiful thing about the stupidity of liberal talk, is that when I was there, I knew I was going to get fired, but they gave me notice. So the CEO who was pushing me out, I stayed on the mic for another week. And it was some of the best radio, I think, ever, because I just shamelessly.
Dude, that's awesome.
It was great. It was like they were trying to do the right thing, but they were so clearly not in tune with the medium. So we just played it out. We did all kinds of riffs. We actually had an executive come in that I got into a physical fight with.
Oh, no shit.
Really? It was not real.
Oh, it wasn't real.
But it sounded great.
So what were you bagging on Air America, or were you just doing...
I was upset because what we were trying to do was irreverent satire, and I had a whole crew of guys that that were doing characters and that were writing bits, fans of yours, and we were really sort of twisting it and doing a very irreverent morning show with some news. I had my guy, the guy I was partnered up with, was a real radio guy, so we would crunch news and he would educate and I would ask questions. But then we had these bits with characters and stuff, and things that may have been real, may not have been real. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. So this one CEO gets into place, this one executive, not a radio guy, music guy, Danny Goldberg. He comes in. It's like, it's too irreverent. I don't get it. We should be more like NPR.
Oh, God.
So my producer was like, there already is an NPR.
Where thousands work, so hundreds can listen.
Right. And that's where
that's what we used to say about him.
So this is right when Howard's leaving terrestrial. Like we should have been we should have taken over New York or at least pulled a little bit.
Right.
For the humor.
Right.
And he fucking pushed me off.
What station were you on in New York?
WLIB was the original station.
Is that Long Island?
No, it was a New York station, was an AM station, was originally a black station.
Was it up at what was the frequency?
Oh boy, I can't. It was low.
Wonder what kind of signal it had.
They were all low signals, really.
That's a good place on the dial for AM
radio.
Local.
Yeah.
All of my stations, like for instance, now are like 1500 on your dial. There was the one when you were a kid. He said, "This is Tiger Radio, 1500." Yeah, baby. The fuck is
They're getting pieces of songs.
Pieces of songs. Some guy working his ass off too. You can hear him through the hiss. You can hear a contest coming up. Dude, he leaves the studio. He's got drenched in sweat. He's dead.
He's drowning.
The signal got down to the Burger King, and that was it.
The
guys was
drowning in static. That guy.
But that's look. I mean, you guys were foreshadowing what's happening with podcasting. Podcasting came about because there's freedom. There's freedom to do any fucking thing we want, man. We can do, and I do a Milwaukee. I made up a football team, and I do fake football games. I have a play-by-play guy, and I use the EA Sports program. And we did an entire 16-game schedule. We kept track of the league stats. I had people tuning in every week there. And meanwhile, he's like face-fucking the owner of the team. That's what we did. I mean, in other words, Jack, I gagged, they're here, and are you in this fucking booth again? You know, you hear beat the shit. Everything I always wanted to hear when I listened to sports.
Right. So you were able to...
What commercial station's going to even...
Well, it's done. It's over, Phil. Yeah. I mean, and you can feel it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of drive time, what are they going to do? I mean, what the fuck are they going to do? They're irrelevant.
Pretty much.
And some talk, but I think what you were getting into with Rush sports, yeah. But what you were getting into with Rush and is an interesting topic for me, because I had this weird moment where you start to realize, all right, there's plenty of wrong-minded assholes in the world, and there's plenty of provocateurs, and he did become somewhat of a shill he became a partisan shill.
I would agree. I'm saying when Rush at his artistic peak.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to address is that you're dealing with a medium that requires performers.
Yes.
And he was a performer.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, man, stylistically, his ability to pause and hold the pause is fucking mind-bending.
If you think about what he did, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, the regular radio listener's never going to understand. If I sit there and I stand and I talk to listeners, who do you like, Phil? I'll say, I like Rush, but hold on. It's not because of his politics.
Right.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't like him. And they don't really get it. Think of the character he created, and it's a marvelous character. I am the authority. That's a character.
Sure. He began to believe it.
But I love the whole, my parents thought I was special, and let's face it, I am pretty special. Yeah. To me, that's funny,
Yeah.
But yeah, the political part is hard to overcome. It's hard for us to appreciate the art, for the average person to appreciate the art, when you're hearing all of that bombast and all that shit. Could he do anything? If Rush was a sports host, it would probably be off the charts fucking brilliant. And if he never talked politics, he was
I think that's true. And I think that, that's...
But of course, he did get sports, didn't he? And he was like, Donovan McNabb is black, and therefore...
of course. Okay.
Never mind.
Yeah. Is this affirmative action? I would say yes.
Yeah. Oh, God.
But I think it's an interesting idea or even the exploration of the ego necessary to do radio is that, you get that face in the crowd thing where you get people like Glenn Beck, you get people like Rush. I mean, Rush at some point made a choice to do politics, and then he became, I'm sure very consciously after a certain point, a sort of voice of right-wing, talking points in a very specific way.
Yeah.
He was being groomed and being taken care of by big right-wing entities eventually. But how could that not to connect in radio, you have to have some fucking ego. This is the interesting thing I've always noticed about when I would go into towns and do morning radio, and on the way the person driving me would say, "This guy's the guy in 4 states. He's the biggest show."
Here's the guy you're up against, right?
Yeah, he's the guy. And I would just be in a comic, and you'd walk in, you see this little guy, and you're like, "That's the guy. That's the powerful, the all-powerful
Bill
Oz."
Bellingham. Yeah. The all-powerful. Yeah, exactly. I mean.
But it's easy to see how that ego could get to a megalomaniacal point, which I think, but maybe I'm fucking wrong, and maybe I'm being a little lefty in that, because I look at personalities like Rush and then what his offspring Glenn Beck, and they kind of play into the megalomaniacal disposition, but ultimately they just like money.
Exactly, man. and keep in mind, of course, that's all they like, and their bosses. More importantly, their bosses like money. Their bosses are there saying, "This right wing shit, this is fantastic." The company the company I'm with right now, TRN. TRN decided somewhere along the line that right wing radio was where it was at, so they started pushing all this right wing shit. And now I think they're hiring. I think Louis Anderson has just been hired by them
for right wing radio.
No,
hey,
I think
guys,
for comedy. It's all of a sudden it's
Obamacare's really not good.
Yeah, so in other words, what I'm saying is, their bosses started liking the money, and their bosses thought it was about the politics. No, it wasn't. It was never about the politics. In a way, it was. It was about. Right-wing radio never would have taken off had there not been an artisan like a Rush Limbaugh to give it its kickstart.
Right.
That's what fooled people that shouldn't have been fooled, these so-called broadcasters. They thought, well, what we got to do is get some right-wingers in there. No, what you got to do is get some people who have got chops, and then let them talk. Get a liberal who's got chops.
Sure. Randy Rhoads.
Randy is a great example.
Yeah.
Stephanie, is a pretty good example. I liked Randy because I worked with her, and she's just a great raconteur, and she flies solo.
And she's a nutbag.
She's a nut. She's a total nut, and,
Yeah.
and a great gal, and
But good broadcaster.
Great broadcaster. And she went back. She was in Miami, and she decided to start all over again. She went up to West Palm Beach and started again in political radio, and that's really found her thing.
But she's a real radio person.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'll tell you an example of what it was unfortunate. Somebody at Air America had put a click of a pistol in a promo after a Bush thing.
Right.
And Randy was like, "Oh fuck," she knows as a broadcaster that's probably against the law.
Yeah.
And but she got hung with that. Somebody said on the Randy Rhoads show,
she's going to kill the president.
Yeah, no.
Right. I think I vaguely remember that. But where do you stand on the fact that, like, okay, we know it's bullshit. Like, I had this weird moment when they pushed me out at Air America, and some people within the organization set me up at night at KTLA. And KTLK.
KTLK, yeah.
So I get there. So they stick me in this night spot at 10 o'clock to go live, if I'm not preempted by a Clippers game, because they still had a sports contract.
Yeah.
But who used to...
I got bumped out there because of sports. I got bumped out because of NBC Sports. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would sit there waiting for a fucking basketball game. And eventually I'm like, I'm not going to fucking record these live. This is embarrassing.
Yeah.
But I was working with that guy. Who was the guy over there on the other side of KTLK? It was the right-wing side. Ziegler, was that his name?
Oh, you mean KTLK or KFI?
KFI.
John Ziegler.
John Ziegler.
Yeah.
So, like, I end up in the bathroom with John Ziegler. He's taking a piss. I'm taking a piss. I'm Marc Maron, and he was like almost like more. He was like, "What's going to happen here?" And by that
There's
point,
going to be a fight.
Well, I'd listened to his radio show, and I'm like, you're good, man. You're a good broadcaster. And he was like, "Why are you saying that? Aren't we?" Yeah, we're both on radio.
Yeah, it's a professional.
He couldn't understand.
No, let me give you an example of just how bad the fucking industry is. I was at a talk seminar in New York, and it was nothing but hosts. And you go to a talk seminar in New York, and there's nothing but hosts there. You're thinking, let's talk some business. How are we going to make some money this year?
Yeah.
Who are the advertisers at?
Right.
What are the stations doing? No. What was this? A bunch of fucking people sitting there and talking politics.
Yeah.
They were doing their shows for each other. And the only other guy I remember, I looked at Lionel, who was there, and he had this look on his face like, what are we doing? Why are we wasting our time? We got an opportunity here where we can actually think up some things we can do to, make some money out of this.
Medium.
Save this goddamn medium,
Yeah.
Instead, they're talking politics.
Yeah.
So, and that's the industry, guys?
Right.
What has happened, man? Are we fooling ourselves into thinking that that's important? So, when you said you stopped talking about politics, I made the same decision about 3 months ago. I just decided I was not even going to go near that shit. I'm just going to talk about stuff.
Right.
And concentrate on the art and concentrate on the humor and be done with that.
But you weren't doing politics for very long, were you?
Not really. I mean, political stuff would come up in the character sketches.
Yeah.
And then after 9/11, the biggest mistake I made was I took big chunks of my show and gave it over to politics after 9/11 because I was super fucking pissed, like a lot of people were, and I really wanted to say something about it. And I got some encouragement. I'm not blaming people, but I felt I really damaged my show because it was a sort of split personality show.
I remember when that happened because I remember hearing you the weird thing is that I think a lot of radio executives, I think there is a lot of right-wingers, a lot of Republicans. Yeah. I mean, I think we got to differentiate between what is characterized as right-wing. Republicans, they're just about keeping their money for the most part. And I think that most liberals at a certain economic level are about that too, but, they'll throw some of it away to make themselves feel better. There's not a lot of difference.
Right.
But ultimately, my question to you before we get into your shift is just that because there's a lot of stupid people in the world.
Yeah.
And even if you know that Rush Limbaugh's a buffoon and Glenn Beck is misleading people with horse shit, I mean, I'll listen to them to get a hate buzz going. I imagine they've got probably about 20% of their listeners are just liberals who like to yell at their radio. But
probably, yeah.
But what do you think about whose responsibility is it after a point where you know that people are being misled?
Well, I think that if a guy's on the air and he's lying about shit, Thomas Jefferson, who everybody loves to talk about until you actually read about Thomas Jefferson, and then you realize that he was a Nazi. No, he was not. Of course, he wasn't. He was very much a states' rights guy. And
sure.
They'll talk about how the tree of liberty is with the blood, and I know there's a quote on the internet that I read, but I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah,
okay, well, thank you very much, Glenn.
Yeah.
I think when you say responsibility, you start to bring in something called the fairness doctrine and equal time, and that scares the shit out of these the so-called right-wingers, unless, of course, you're talking about obscenity, then they do want the FCC monitoring things, but that makes sense to them. And I would rather personally, Mark, this. I would rather have the audience. I would rather have the audience be intelligent enough to know that they're being fucked with. Because if I bring in a monitor of some kind, if I bring in somebody, if I feel it's my responsibility, regardless of whether it's going to make money or not, to bring some guy in to, balance it out. At the end of the day, what am I doing here, man? I'm getting further and further away from what we should be doing, which is really entertaining people. If we're going to inform people, then that's called a news department.
Yeah, well, those don't exist.
Yeah, if we're going to give opinions, then we should balance it. I would say that if you call yourself a talk station, and you're a conservative talk station, well, okay.
Yeah.
But then it's on you, man. If your people are lying, can I sue a guy for saying that Obama's a communist? No, I can't.
Yeah. Sure.
It's not true, and you've got to be the dumbest motherfucker that ever walked to think that A, communism's making a comeback.
Sure.
And B, that Obama's a communist.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit who Saul Alinsky, whatever that stuff is, But as far as whose responsibility is it? It's the responsibility of the consumer.
Yeah, well, there you go. But yeah, that's always, that is the most revealing, horrible thing about America in one way. It's like, hey, look, man, I can express whatever I want to these people. It can be bullshit, doesn't matter. I'm going to say it convincingly, and it's on them.
Yeah.
And then when you see the number of people that are like, yeah, we want to see the birth certificate, you're like, wow, I overestimated.
Let's talk about that. How many people are there really, though? Now, you and I were just talking about how three women can get a guy bounced off the air.
Right.
I wonder how many birther people there really are, because at the end of the day, man, Barack Obama got elected president.
Big time, yeah.
It wasn't the other guy. It was Obama. 2 terms,
Well, I think that becomes a question about, I think what people really get aggravated about with the right is just how organized they are with their propaganda
with
machine.
Bullshit, yeah.
And and the fact is they sold those guys out. I mean, the birther was, whatever the next evolution of the right to life movement was, mixed in with a bunch of whack job, half-ass libertarians and patriots, supposedly, constitutionalists, and they're like, let's just give these guys a little juice. And they'll kind of juice us.
Yeah.
And then they let a bunch of them into Congress, and all these old guard Republicans are like, what did we fucking let in here?
Yeah, or
now we got to fight these guys?
Or they say, hey, Bob, this is who we should be with. Hey, Tea Party guys, hi.
That's right. They did do that.
Trump is a good example. Trump started out talking about oil, China, the trade ratio, the this, the that. I thought, well, this is a cat who's talking about some shit here. I like to listen to the economic... Donald Trump is injecting the knowledge and intelligence of a businessman into issues like the Chinese trade deficit. And as soon as the cat declared, he starts in with the birth certificate.
Right.
So he went stupid.
Well, I don't know whether that was self-promotion or what he really thought he was doing. I think he was really trying
killed
to...
him, I think.
Well, it definitely killed him, but I think in his mind, he thought he had a shot. He thought there was more of them than there were.
And there ain't.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
That's the whole thing with that Pat Buchanan thing in the 90s. Buchanan was like, yes, the revolution is on. And when the primaries were over, nobody gave a shit, man.
But he was a clown, too. That's the interesting thing. You see these guys get older, and as they mellow, and they just become these kind of aggravated old men, you're like, they knew it was a shtick. They were just playing the political game. It's all a fucking game, which is one of the reasons I got out of it. I said, look, I'm disillusioned. You get to a certain point where you realize, hey, you know what? I thought I had all these opinions, and they were mine, but I'm carrying partisan water, and I'm a comedian. I gotta ride both sides of the fence here, and you cannot avoid carrying. You all of a sudden you realize that I'm getting my information from the same place. Who's distributing this information?
Yeah.
The people that want you to talk like this.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I fucked myself. How did that even happen?
Well, but you're going to change minds when you are talking about stuff, and I listen to Marc Maron, and I enjoy what Marc Maron is about. You're going to have more impact on me as a person that way than you are if you were just hammering some fucking point of view.
Well, there's that moment where you realize you're not sure. Where you're like, what do I really believe in? And I don't know if you had that moment, but I'm like, look, existential problems of just existing in this world with all its challenges, as a guy my age or a guy your age, is daunting, and it presents a whole world of frustrations that you can speak to every day.
That's right. Yeah.
And those are important because those are for everybody, everybody's experiencing them. So let's stick with those.
Yeah.
What do I got to split the room with bullshit for?
Exactly.
Stuff that I don't even know if anything's going to change.
Right.
And they want us to fight each other. They want us to fight.
They want us to think they're interesting. And so what happened though? here's what happened. As we get frustrated, talk radio is dead. It's now all about sports radio.
Yeah.
And the political dialogue in this country is going to get a break. It's going to, in other words, we can go back to talking to each other on a street corner or in a bar, and we don't have, did you hear what Bill Billingsley said today on K-Ass? Boy, I'll tell you. Who's that? Billingsley. You ever heard him? You know, call him by his first name. You know,
sure.
Yeah, did you hear Theo? Yeah,
right.
Theo.
Yeah.
So, and then we can just go back to sports, and then it'll come back around. Somebody's going to go, all we ever do is talk about sports in this country. You're the real shit that's happening. You know,
man.
Well, we had that conversation. Remember how we fucked it up? Well... So
just cycles.
Yeah.
But when you started doing the characters,
yeah,
like it seems to me that you were a fan of the power. I mean, it was almost like you realized listening to comedy records or to comics or to people that influenced you who took those kind of chances that there was no reason why you couldn't do it on radio.
Sure.
Who were your guys?
Comics?
Yeah, or whoever influenced you.
Well, it was Lenny Bruce, it was Jackie Gleason, it was Laurel and Hardy, and it was to some extent Jonathan Winters, but not as much, I'd say, as like the Lenny Bruces. And then Frank Zappa. When I got into high school, I loved his satirical approach to rock and roll. Was so great.
Like what specifically? Just that this amazing instrumentation with these completely.
No, that he completely. As soon as rock and roll got all puffed up about itself, along comes Frank Zappa to say, disco boy, there's dandruff on your shoulder.
Yeah.
So, you think about it, rock and roll doesn't have that anymore. Rap, really, hip-hop doesn't have that, to some extent maybe, but that voice that'll come along and poke the holes.
Cut through the bullshit.
Is so fucking necessary, and Zappa was so funny with that shit. I mean, Reuben and the Jets, it's where we grew up.
Yeah.
Reuben and the Jets basically El Monte, some dude with a freaking processed jelly roll and the Chico Jr. boots and a car that's jacked up in the back,
right.
two-tone Chevy. And it's just hysterical to me.
So you like the guys that cut through the bullshit.
Yeah,
and who had a voice that sort of rose above the rest.
Who made fun of the things that I saw every day. Because most of these comics were talking about, my wife.
Yeah.
I don't know. But here comes a guy that's laughing about the dude on the corner who takes his car down the Lions drag strip on amateur night.
Yeah.
And the drivetrain drops out as soon as the light goes green. That's the stuff I would howl at, And these guys are making fun of it. So, and then came, of course, Credibility Gap and Firesign Theater. Those were really big because those guys interested me in radio chops. I could hear what they were doing in the studio, and I know like Harry and Michael McKean, all those guys.
Phil Proctor.
Yeah, and Phil Proctor, who I've had an opportunity to talk to, and I know those cats they get it about audio and about audio comedy, about sound effects and shit. So those guys, I started listening to them and go, wow, this can be a radio show every day. And, of course, they did do it, too. Credibility Gap was on the air here on KRLA. That was KRLA's news.
Was that Fred Willard, too? Or no?
It was David L. Lander. It was Harry Shearer. It was Michael McKean. It was Lou Irwin. And their guitar player, I forget, this dude wrote a new song for every newscast.
And Harry still does it.
Harry still does the show, and it's now a podcast over on Sideshow. And yeah, I think Harry's always going to be.
So, do you remember the first time you was the first character you did an impulse, or was it you're like, I'm going to do this today?
It was it was something I've done my whole life. It was in other words, I wanted to do voices. I just didn't know how because my instincts were so fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know how am I going to do what I really want to do on the radio. They're going to think I'm crazy. They'll put me away because that has to do with the way I was raised and the whole trauma of my upbringing.
Which was what?
Well, I mean, I come from a background of manic depression and
on what side?
On both sides.
Both your parents were manic depressed?
Yeah. My mother was more depressed. My father was more manic. And the one thing the Hendrie family needed to do out there in Arcadia, in the Lily White Arcadia in the 60s, was to appear normal.
Right.
And my mother was just, shh. That's why this character I have, Margaret, she's always, and do you know that your father, he dated a Jew before he met me? Well, Mom, what are you whispering for? I'm not whispering. Were you ashamed of that? Of course I'm not ashamed of that. The man across the hall, he's so nice. He's a black man. Yes. And he brought me my paper, and I think he must have some white blood in him. Well, why is that, Mom? Well, he's very handsome. Yeah. Well, Mom, that's kind of racist. How dare you? Yeah,
yeah right.
Yeah, so that was my mom. Yeah, it was all about appearances. And so naturally growing up about appearances, the last thing I'm going to do is all these voices. I wanted to fit in so bad, man.
Yeah.
And finally, when my radio career was just stalling, I said, well, I'm going to have to bring the weird out now, man. Otherwise, I got nothing going.
Right.
And I brought the weird out. And
were you at the end of your rope?
I was at the end of my rope in a lot of ways. I knew I had more talent, and I knew I could.
It's an amazing moment, moment.
Yeah, and I was on a train.
Yeah.
I was on a fucking train going to Seattle to visit my girlfriend, and I remember thinking and looking out the window at a setting sun over the Pacific, thinking, I don't care if I have one listener, I don't care if I never make another nickel, but I'm going to
let it out.
It was Patton, I'm going to be allowed to fulfill my destiny,
Yeah.
His will be done.
Yeah.
And so, that was it. And got on the radio and started doing it. And it's a funny thing when you do that, and I mean, for all you young people listening, when you do that, great stuff happens. Really great stuff happens.
Because you finally feel like you're in your body, you're honoring yourself, your creativity.
Yeah. And you're proud of yourself.
Oh, that's a big one.
You're making yourself laugh.
Right.
I would go home and listen to air checks and go, God damn, that's funny.
Where were you on the air when you did it?
I was at KVEN in Ventura. It was a little tiny station, in a market of 600,000 people.
Uh-huh.
And then I got hired to go to Atlanta. And then I got hired to go to Minneapolis, and then Miami, and then to L.A. And when I got to L.A. in '96, it was every city was a gauntlet I had to run. Every city was a new thing, and I sat down.
And were you still doing music?
No, this was all talk radio. Now this is I started the talk show in '90, and I remember sitting down with the sales staff at KFI, and I go, well. Yes, I know that your act worked in Miami, but this is Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll find it's very different. And I remember saying, that's what they tell me in every town, man.
Yeah.
No, it was just taking the innate, and it goes to what you and I were talking about. It takes the credibility that talk radio had or has still, I'm not sure, allowed me to do what I did. Because
people believe it.
People are going, oh, wow, there's a woman there, and I'm going to call her up and rip her ass.
Uh-huh.
And what we did with the show is we realized that the little small percentage of people that call who are very myopic, you entertain, as they probably said to you, you're doing it for the listeners, not the callers.
Yeah.
And I took that to a literal extreme. We treated the callers like dog shit,
right?
Like they're working for Scientology in the basement.
There's like 15 or 20 of them.
Yeah, right. And they're all very just... Yeah, hi. Look, some of these talk show callers think they're as important as the host. I call all the shows. So, and what's your name? Billy from La Brea. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, and this guy right here.
Yeah.
And so you want to say, Billy, it's a made-up voice. It's not even there. It's just me going.
But why?
You want to say it, but you don't.
Right. You don't.
I don't say it. And he's just like, and I can't. Well, and my daughter died. And I love that when they try to manipulate the emotion of the.
Yeah.
My daughter died in an automobile accident. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Was she a piece of ass?
Yeah.
And you just, how dare you? And for me, it was just completely blowing up talk radio. It was attacking the very thing that you and I are talking about.
And the greatest thing about it is that, because I remember the first time I listened to you, I was like, what is going on here? Because it was like it was in L.A., and I don't know if you were really on my radar, and it was at night, and I don't remember what time your show was on at night, right?
Like 9 to midnight, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I'm just listening to, I just came upon it, and I still remember, it was, I think it was a father talking about his kid, and he kept saying spring in his step. He used to have spring in his step. Like, I don't know.
We used to love those terms.
It was a great term, like the term I'd never heard it before. I'm like, I got to remember that.
Yeah.
He's got no spring in his step, do you remember what I'm talking about?
I don't remember that bit. No, I do recall. I used to love to hold on to these phrases like, boy, she likes to stick it in and break it off. Stick it in and break it off. I milked that one night. And when a caller repeats it back, it's gold. Because like, and you're talking about sticking it in, breaking it off. I'll tell you what you got to stick it in, break off. It's just like a golden moment. And really, what you and I are talking about, taking all that self-important bullshit and blowing it apart, we did it every night. And to that extent, I guess maybe that's the best way of attacking it. I don't know. But
no, it is.
We were on talk stations, and I got this. I don't know whether he's what is it, fish or fowl? Yeah, I don't know. Is he fish or fowl? It's a comedy. It's a satire.
Yeah.
Oh, treat it the way they do Saturday Night Live on NBC. Well, television's slightly different, man, because they have all kinds of, they block program on television. Sure. They have news, they have comedy, they have drama.
Yeah.
Radio doesn't. Radio has it's all drama, comedy.
Yeah.
In other words, you walk into a store where they're selling tuxedos and there's a guy in the corner selling really cool tie-dye shirts. And they're the best tie-dye shirts you've ever seen, but you really came into the store for a tuxedo.
Right.
That was kind of what happened to my show.
And also with radio comedy, I mean, I think even historically, it was so broad, and it was so sort of like, fart noises, and you had two personalities have very defined roles in the situation. It was all pop culture driven.
And very obvious comedy.
Exactly. There was no sort of utilizing the potential of the illusion.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that people were coming to this, like, and me included, where you could actually, no matter what, even now if you were on the radio, you would dupe people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were people that listened to you for years that never knew that those were fake.
For years, that would scare me. If I met someone, I used to say to people, how long? I listened for 6 years, and I finally got it. And you just don't want to shake their hand. You want to... Okay, thank you.
Well, there's also the divisive of how you do it. I mean, I don't quite know how you do it. After I knew that it was a shtick, I couldn't quite figure out how you change the tonal textures.
Well, what you're doing is, it really is just a telephone. For everybody that used to say, well, he has processing equipment. No, I don't, okay, Mr., I've got audio equipment at home, and that's my hobby.
Right.
No, it's not. It's a phone. We put it through a phone box because you get a little more dirty noise with a phone box.
Right.
I also have some sound effects. I have a loop that just continues of like what is a cell phone sound effect. So I'll use I got 6 or 7 of those.
Yeah.
And then it's just a technique of knowing how people speak, and I've got my mic up and then I pull it down when I'm on the phone. So if I'm doing 2 voices.
So you're going through the phone board or the telos or whatever.
Yeah, when I'm on the phone.
Right.
When I'm on the mic, I'm on the mic.
So you're just working the knobs.
Yeah, what I'm doing is holding the phone far away from me when I'm on mic so it doesn't feed back.
Right.
Because I got to leave the phone pot up. I can't work 2 pots, so I'm just working one. And then it's just something probably I developed it as a kid when I used to love listening to people's conversations. Uh-huh. And to me, the funniest thing in the world is the reality. Uh-huh. That's funny. Yeah. Reality's funny. And when it's a reality like, my father was the guy, my dad would be driving, and he'd be pissed, and he'd say to a guy, you better get out of the way, pal, you got an ass full of car.
Yeah.
And he'd be, and he'd go, what are you laughing at, Philip? I'm like, ass full of car, are you kidding? Well, shit, Yeah. So to me, so getting a guy on the radio saying, and I can tell you right now, Mr. Hendrie, that my wife is very beautiful, but as the coach of a team, I don't want these young men getting ideas. Well, what was going on? Well, I've got these young men, and they're looking her up and down. And, you tell them, I set them straight. I said, I'm going to tell you something. If any of you even lay a hand on her. Now, what team were you coaching? Well, it was a little league team over here in the, but you do it, you don't drop it quite so.
Right, string it out.
Yeah, you string it. What you're doing is people are finally a little league team, and you're worried they're going to hit on your wife? Hey, let me tell you what. This guy. Right. Now suddenly the guy. Now his character really comes. Oh, this guy's like paranoid, and he's possessive, and he's crazy. And no, I'm not. No, I'm fine.
I'm being reasonable.
Exactly.
Yeah, but is it all improvised? I mean,
you bullet point it. So you and I would sit down, maybe, or you and your show, Mark, you sit down and go, oh, this would be really funny if a guy was super protective of his young wife around these sports, teams. Like, the bit was born out of the thought, gee, if I owned a team, that would be really cool, and I'd have a lot of money, and I'd have this really young, hot wife. Wait a minute. And then she's going into the locker room and seeing all these big dicks on these naked guys.
Sure.
And I thought, how funny would it be if that was a situation? Let's play with that. And then we got to this, what if it was a little league team?
Right.
What if it was a high school team?
Sure.
So how do we make that real? How do you make a guy like that, not a funny man, not a shticky guy, but how do you take a guy who really believes that his wife will be hit on by little leaguers and that the little leaguers do it? What does he sound like in real life?
Right.
Well, he's like, now I'm going to tell you. You can go about it 2 ways. He can say, I know this is going to sound funny. You can go that way.
Right.
Or you can go this way. You can go, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't understand. And to me that's
I'm living this.
Yeah, I'm living it every day. And to me that's a funnier way to go. So what do you think's going on? I can tell you right now, Mr. These kids grow up very quick now. What are you looking at?
That guy.
Yeah, his 11-year-old kid is hitting on my wife, and it's humiliating. And that touches something in any man. A man's going to say, that is humiliating, but this guy's, he's fucked up.
He's a little out there, but then you're like, this guy's out, he's a little nuts.
And we got the call that I often say this, we get the opposite of call of what most guys get. Most guys get, at first I thought you were serious, but now I know you're kidding. We get the opposite call. At first I thought you were kidding, but now I know you're serious.
Because you took it to such a degree.
Yeah. Oh, I thought this was a joke.
Right.
Are you No. You think that a man losing his wife to a 12-year-old's funny? Yeah. You think, well, sir, you're a crazy...
Right. Yeah. Because you by stringing it along and playing it straight,
right,
the character has depth. And because of this microphone, and there's nothing seen, that depth is a lot easier to get that deep that quickly.
Yeah.
Because it's really just about phrasing, and people are like, holy fuck. Did you hear how he said that?
Yes.
This
and
is a
he's,
real guy.
He's really, he's angry. Now, the problem with radio is the radio has the quarter hours and all this shit, so you got to string it out, and while you're stringing it out and
you got
telling
to
the
tell
story,
yourself to hang on.
Yeah. Yeah. You also have to tell the audience, stay with this, it's going to be funny. Because during the opening monologue, they're thinking they're just hearing a regular show, and either it's interesting or it's not, and a lot of them will just go away and go to another station. I don't want to hear about a guy and his wife.
Right.
Podcasting affords the opportunity of people listening at their leisure, and there's nobody leaning on me saying, come on, Phil, hurry it up, you got a quarter hour that you have to worry about, you got to... No,
reset.
I'm going to fucking do this the way I want to do it. So when we finally get out of our current radio deal, and I'm seriously considering just chucking radio altogether and just doing exclusively a podcast show, and I can do the phone call show with a podcast and have live calls.
Sure, you just got to set up a time.
And there's other techniques we can use, and people want to hear on demand. They want to listen on demand.
Sure.
I was talking to
easier.
Yeah, that's what's killing TV.
Well, that's it. It's interesting that this is one of the great moments of I heard there's a couple of dinosaur radio guys that were talking to some other comic that I know about podcasting. And of course it came down to the ego thing where it's like, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, I listen, they don't even reset.
They don't reset.
Why do we need to reset?
You don't need to reset.
People
man.
chose to listen to it.
Yeah.
There's no resetting.
There's no PPM here, man. Yeah, there's no fucking PPM. There's none of that shit,
I'm a pro, I reset.
Yeah.
So when
That's why, not to interrupt you, Mark,
no, go ahead.
Look at the podcast, look at the top comedy podcasts on iTunes. They're all comics. With rare exception. There's a radio guy. You did radio. I think we're in there. Yeah. But mostly comics. And they're pulling down, you guys are pulling down ad dollars. And hello, Mr. Radio Guy. These cats are making a success out of this medium. So it's time to stop asking yourself how. This is obviously where it's at, because you guys they're not making money in radio anymore.
Well, the weird thing, this is what I was telling you before, is these guys have been coddled for so long. It must be very frightening for a guy that, and they're all tired. These morning crews and stuff. It's like, right. You walk into some of them and the mics go down and they're on their phone. They're not talking to each other.
Don't talk to each other. Yeah.
It's almost heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That something that had so much juice at some other point in time was now just sort of this husk that was just running on fumes. But if they're holding a good share of the market, the programmers and the managers are going to keep them there at their nut, and they get spoiled. I mean, it must be frightening even for a guy your age. I would imagine you're about 10 years older than me to all of a sudden say, well, I'm gonna leave my parents' house.
Well, I've got no choice. I mean, I had a radio show that was went as far as it could. I thought I could take it further by sort of reinvigorating it a little bit. But I know now that the industry is not prepared to support what I do, and the industry wants to go to a sports model. The comedy thing, they don't understand. They still don't. They never. I don't know what their problem is. My agent said to me, "Can you do what you do, Phil, only with sports?" I said, "Yeah, I guess. But why limit it? I want,
Right."
So I said, "Look, I'm going to send you a Milwaukee Lion podcast. See how they like that? A guy's, why? How dare you come into my booth? Ah!"
And you did that, 16 of those?
I did 16 games. Yeah, we had pregame, postgame. We did the Dickman Bowl, which was the championship of the league.
Yeah,
and it was always a play-by-play guy that I want to hear, but. It ain't scary to me, because we've got a subscriptions site, so we make a pretty good income from that, and I can take the podcast thing and experiment with that. We also do video, which I know you don't do, Mark, and I like.
Is that new to you?
We've been doing a video cast since 2009.
Yeah, and do you like letting people in on the? Because for what you do, I know that
people like to see it. They like to watch the performing. They like to see me going into character.
That's great.
Yeah, but I think what you said was fascinating. I can do a video cast. They don't have to be looking at me. They could be looking at a slide of me, or I don't know, or maybe the ocean.
Well, for me, it was like a lot of infrastructure, and I don't necessarily do what you do. And I know that there was a time there where we used to hear rumors or stories of Howard Stern goes over and watches Phil whenever he's in town.
Oh no, just one time Howard came over. He came over when I was at KFI, because his agent Don Buchwald was the agency that I was with.
Yeah.
And Howard at that time was what was he doing, man? He was thinking of setting up his a network, which he eventually did do at Satellite.
Sirius,
Yeah, he's a nice man, and he came in and watched, and he's a radio dog.
Yeah.
Howard's he's
real deal.
He's the real thing, man. We were talking about production, we were talking about cutting tape, we were talking about voices, we were talking about so he's on America's Got, he's all that shit. But when you sit down, you can talk radio with him, and I found him to be a terrific guy and very nice to me. I know he can really rip some people, and I wouldn't want to be there.
He's the standard, he's the deal. Howard is the deal.
Well, I wouldn't blame him. I don't blame him a lot. There's so many cats that are trying to do his act.
Well, he unleashed something in the world, but everybody does.
Yeah.
But no one does it with the sort of finesse and the charm that he does. It seems. It's very shock jockeying or whatever it became. Because it's interesting when you see when Howard was cutting his teeth within FCC standards.
Yeah.
It was really challenging and interesting to watch. I always wonder about that sometimes when you see like Bill Maher move from Comedy Central to HBO, or you see Howard move from terrestrial to satellite, where they no longer have to worry about saying fuck or being graphic. That some of the things that were challenging to do the type of comedy and to make it work within those confines was really not more compelling, but you knew less about who they really were.
Yeah, and I heard people say when Howard got divorced, it really, the women especially, they loved to know that he was to hear about the family.
Sure, and also that he was a good husband despite all his perviness.
Yeah.
Fighting the good fight.
Yeah. Well, I think that in life, people change, and I think in entertainment, you have to sort of move on. Not move on, but you have to evolve. I mean, can you think of people doing the same act for 60, 70 years, 50 years or something? I don't know.
How is that not a jail?
Yeah.
I get that, yeah.
Can't you change it? And, he's doing a lot of stuff now that people are saying, Howard's not as good. But I think he'll find... And sometimes it takes years. He'll find something.
Or he won't, and he'll be fine.
And it'll be okay.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Like, there's some part of me, it's like, look, if I had enough money to really call it quits, I would call it quits.
Me too, dude. I do it once a week, maybe once a month. Shit, yeah.
You see all these cats that are richer than God, and they're out there strutting it around, and I'm like, what do you... Go sit down.
Yeah, go sit down. Like Buddy Rich. I got a home in Palm Springs. I can sit on my ass the rest of my life. I don't need you high school bastards.
Yeah, right.
Did you ever hear those Buddy Rich out there?
Yeah. Fuck. You guys are blowing clams out there. I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that is, blowing clams. Blowing? And what are you blowing? Clams!
Yeah. I don't even know what that was. Maybe
blowing clams.
I don't even know.
Right there's an FCC violation.
Yeah, I think that's how I heard it. Yeah. Perhaps I was wrong. But
so I think I think like me, I don't get any phone calls anymore, man, because my contract's coming up, so the affiliates are falling away. The company's not holding on to them. So I'm just doing character voices, and I'm sort of, in other words, I've created a kind of a morning show in there with 3 imaginary people. But I listen to the air checks now, and it actually makes me laugh. And I'm wondering, am I finding something here? Because I got people who, hit me up on Facebook and say, God, you were funny last night. And I'm thinking, I bet you these are people who never heard the old show with the calls.
Sure.
There's a new audience. There's a turnover.
Well, the calls were a lot of juice.
I mean, a lot. It's also, it made the show extremely unique and got a lot of buzz going. But
that spontaneity thing,
yeah.
So that's when you put up the old episodes for everybody.
That's when put up the old episodes, and also we've got but also I took one of the characters, Bobby Dooley, and she's doing a podcast now. She's interviewing celebrities.
So you could start a whole network. You could just give all your characters shows if you wanted to.
Phil Hendrie.
How many do you have? Do you have a count?
Probably about 20, 25 that we do solid a lot.
That are in rotation.
Yeah, and then probably about 40, because I just found one the other night. I was just doing a voice, and it was a female, but it worked. It was a male voice. I forget who the character was, but I just decided I was doing Steve Bozell was the host of the show. I'm Steve Bozell. I'm filling in for Phil Hendrie, and okay, let's go to a call. I don't know how to do it. Hi, you're on the air. Hi, and you just kind of you start to play with it.
Yeah.
Hi, you're Mr. Bosel. Is that it? Because I've been listening here. Well, and I found out something.
Yeah.
It isn't the voice.
Yeah.
It's the pacing, the timing, the language you use, and the ambience. You can get someone to believe that the voice that I have right now is a woman.
Yeah.
If you use the right kind of language.
Yeah.
If you've got a little bit of an ambient change, like maybe hold the phone a little bit further away.
Right.
And use a certain cadence.
And people, yeah, sure, they'll go with it.
They'll go with it. They'll
They're just
believe
like,
it.
maybe she has a problem with her. Yeah.
Could be, or she's just a cigarette smoker or something like that.
Whatever. Yeah.
I got on the air one night when I was in Miami, and I said, we have Mark Furman with us, the LAPD cop,
Sure.
you know, and Mark, and I didn't change my voice at all. Mark, how are you? I'm fine. Well, that's great. Yeah, it's great. So, how's things out in L.A.? Well, you know, we're trying to find the guy that killed, you know, whoever. There were people calling. You had Mark Furman today, man. That was fast. That was great.
Yeah, they want to believe.
Yeah.
Isn't that the weirdest thing?
Yeah.
Is that, you know, we live in a culture, as advanced as we are, where, you know, psychics are still hold sway. People still think they're going to win the lottery.
Yeah.
That, like, no matter how God-driven anybody is, this is the great thing about living in a nation of suckers, is that. I mean, we all are to a certain degree. You want to believe it. You know, why wouldn't you want to believe it? I mean,
It's true.
So you know, you suspend your disbelief, and you're like, "This is I want to engage with something real."
Yeah.
And those are always the saddest when they realize, you know, it's not real. It's like, oh,
And you get some people get really pissed at you.
that because they feel like you took advantage of them.
Yeah, and some of them, they'll get pissed at you this way. They'll say, "Oh, that was really funny.
Yeah.
And, you fooled me for how long? For a whole year? You know, that was really great." And then they start, you know, messaging you, and they start saying, "Ah, you're really funny. You're really funny." But there's something about them that's, you know, a little oppressive, and you just don't want to talk to them.
Right.
And so now they say, not only did he fool me, but he doesn't think I'm a cool guy, and now they hate you.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know?
yeah. Then the hate starts coming.
and the
I
hate
used to like you.
Right.
Yeah. You used to be good.
Yeah. You used to be a nice guy.
Yeah.
What happened?
Fucking, what happened? You apparently got.
You happened, man.
Yes,
you came
something
into
went
my-
wrong inside of you, buddy.
Yeah, and I got a death threat yesterday on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I said, "Here's what a death threat looks like, you guys." And I placed it up, you know, in very prominent view.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought what was interesting about it was there's so many people that are not aware of that world at all.
Of the trolls,
They're not aware of that death threat. You know what we have to deal with on the dark side sometimes.
It's the scariest fucking thing in the world because, you know, not unlike anybody else in the world, you know, these kind of things happen all the time. There's always a couple of loose screws out there.
Right.
But, like, when you hear the stories, and again, you know, we're victims of it too, when you hear about identity theft, and then all of a sudden, then you really start to think about your life versus, like, a celebrity who can afford a bunker's life. You know, like, you know, if you do enough research, you can find my name and address.
Sure.
You know, it's very easy.
Somebody put my name and address on Twitter.
Right. I've had that kind of stuff happen. So then you get one of these death threats, and it becomes a little harder to dismiss.
Right.
Like, there's just some crazy. Then for 2 weeks, you're checking your locks. You're wondering what that noise was. How fucking crazy is this guy? Is he with other people? Well, maybe that's just me. I don't know if you go through that.
Oh, you're putting on camo paint. You know, you're looking like you're going to get Bin Laden.
Yeah,
you know,
I've got fake nose.
SEAL Team 6. I'm on the roof now. No, you're right. And but I've been at it for 40 years, and I've had probably an average of 3 death threats a year in my life. And at some point, I got really pissed off. And I became a little psycho. You know, one night I actually got in the car, and everybody in the station said, "No, Phil, don't do it. No, Phil." Like, remember in Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah.
"No, Mac, don't do it." Mac,
yeah.
while he's choking her.
Yeah.
I'm in my car going, "I'm going to find this guy."
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
dude
yeah.
says, "I'm in a white Mercedes." So I got in my car, and I saw a white Mercedes parked at the El Pollo Loco. And I hit reverse, and I pull up, and I sat there, staring into this white Mercedes.
Yeah.
And I sat and I stared and I sat and I stared.
This is a caller?
This was a caller,
Right.
who said, "I'm going to kill you, man."
Right.
Well, the guy in the white Mercedes is like, "The fuck?"
Yeah.
You know, he's eating his chicken. And
He's
it
looking
wasn't
at
the
you.
guy. It was some other guy. You know, he's waiting for his wife to come out, you know. And I'm sitting there just,
Yeah.
you know, all of a sudden I became the crazy man.
That's
you know?
that happened to me, man.
Yeah.
And I've done it, you know, not to that degree, but I was just starting out in radio, and I was getting mail about the show saying, like, get rid of Maron. He shouldn't be sitting at the grown-up table, and, you know, and he was and these emails kept coming, and I'm still real sensitive about this shit.
Of course.
So I started
Everybody is,
emailing
man.
this guy back. Well, what exactly did I say that upset you or made you think this? And then he's like, "You're just not this and this and this." And then I go back again. It's like, well, I want to understand. And then it got to this point where he literally said, "You know, why are you still emailing me?"
Yeah.
Well,
Because
I'm
it's
the guy.
It's a game.
But I'm the guy. Now I'm the asshole. Like, but that it's also the moment that you should realize that this is all they want.
Yeah.
That they want you to react. And if you react, they win.
They win.
I still fight this fight every day on fucking Twitter.
Yeah.
You know,
Well.
I cannot, like, for two, For 2 hours today, some guy didn't even take that big a shot at me. He just said, I listened to George Wallace on Jay Moore's show today. It was smart and intriguing. Marc Maron, not so much, missed opportunity. So I didn't even know what it meant. I mean, I guess he listened to both podcasts.
It's one of those dismissals that just kind of gets right in under your fucking
skin
a
little bit.
But we're
also fucking sensitive.
Yeah.
I can't seem to, I know a lot of people are like, you just got to detach from it. It's like, well, you're not me. I mean, if I was able to fully detach from this shit, I don't know if I would still be me.
You wouldn't be in the business. You do have to ignore it. I'll tell you, just so you feel better, man. I had a friend. I was making a really good friend with someone in the business, a female, and I won't mention her name out of respect to her. And we were really having great conversations and making plans to kind of meet up and this and that. And then an interview with me came out. That was a good interview.
Yeah.
But she emailed me the negative comments in the comment section. Didn't know if you saw this.
Yeah.
Now, all day long, I've been getting people saying, hey, good interview in the thing. That's pretty cool, man.
Comment sections are the worst.
And this is my friend who's in the business.
Yeah.
Sends me these 3 comments. And I said, gee, thanks a lot. And I don't have any idea why I reacted this way. Why would you do that? I was increasingly strident, because I really honestly didn't know why.
She would send it to you.
She said to me, I want to know if people are saying negative things. I want people to know that why are you reacting this way? Well, I honestly don't know one person in this business that would send me negative comments on the day a really good argument.
Yeah.
What would you do, However, she did, and I'm sure she was well-intentioned, but that was the end of our fucking relationship, man. That was it.
She wasn't even the troll.
No, she was my friend.
You killed the messenger, Phil.
I don't know, and I feel bad about it,
Why? Because she can't, you acted in such a way that it's just not, you can't, there's no coming back from it.
Well, I did apologize, but I think she just said... But I still think to myself, why did she send those?
Right.
What?
Yeah, I'm like that too. It's like, why, there are those people that, they sort of, they give you those compliments that end with, well, what'd you think? I thought you did a great job. How'd you feel about it?
How'd you feel about it?
Why don't you just leave it at, you did
a great job. I totally understand, and the best thing to do is to not read the shit. I mean, it's hard. When you go into your mentions, you're going to see it.
Yeah, I'm getting better at it. Because you start to realize that they're all hacks,
and it's about getting a reaction.
Yeah, and it's all it's all the same angle.
Yeah.
How do we push these guys' buttons? And if you get a guy like me who has his console is always right out there in the open, they're going to fucking come at you and keep pushing buttons.
Yeah.
Well, so what's going on with the acting? Is that still happening?
That's an interesting question. Right now, and I'm looking for... I have an agent, but they're not really theatrical agents, so...
Didn't they build a show around you at some point?
I had a show. I had a pilot, 2 pilots.
Right.
And that was one was at NBC and the other was at Fox. One was animated and one was live action. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Steve Levitan produced my animated pilot.
Yeah.
And then he went on to create Modern Family, and now he's making a lot of money for other people, so that's really great. Huh?
Yeah.
Right,
sure.
I'm just kidding, Steve.
Yeah.
But, I'm looking for... when I get free of this daily radio thing that I'm doing right now, I'm going to have an opportunity to do more, and that's what was happening when I left radio the first time. We did a lot of pilots and got a regular thing on the unit and all this shit. Now I need to find a theatrical agent and then get back into the rooms and read.
Yeah.
I'm getting those auditions. I was talking to Jay Moore about that. Jay says, if you could just go and do the job, you're going to be great at it. But no, you got to go into that goddamn room first,
Right.
and that's the place, where you're just like...
Yeah.
Okay, let me just act natural now.
With you 6 people.
6 people are looking at you, wanting you to just show me some talent, man. You've been here like 30 seconds.
Or just show me that, you fit some idea we have that has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. And sure, I'm willing to do that, but you got to be in the room a lot. You have to be auditioning a lot to make sure you get your audition chops down, and this past year has been really thin, man. I got hired on New Girl, which was great. I'm grateful for that. I was 300 pounds when I got hired for that job. 300 pounds, man.
You got up that high?
Yeah. I'm the weight you see me. You didn't know me when I was fat, dude. I was like a big fat, tub of guts.
How long ago was that?
A year ago.
Really?
Yeah.
How the hell did you get so fat?
I quit smoking. I had pneumonia. I was in the hospital, and I'd already been heavy because I got married. Let's start right there. Yeah. And that was to 9 years of eating, fattening food. But then I
stuffing those emotions.
Yeah.
Sure, honey.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Poor Maria, she put on the weight too.
Oh yeah.
But So I got pneumonia and I went in the hospital and I gave up smoking after that. And when you give up smoking, it's what else is there?
Dude,
well,
I've been on nicotine lozenges for years.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, I know, but is it good? Now I can't live without these.
Is that seriously?
I love
Do you mind
it.
if I try one of those?
Are you sure?
Well, maybe I better not.
No, I mean,
because I'll be reintroducing nicotine.
Nicotine, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the spirit though.
But I quit smoking, and then I started eating, so I got up to 300 pounds. And
how'd you take it off?
I just went on a 2,000 calorie a day diet. Just kept myself to 2,000 calories, and about 3 days a week, go out and run the beach.
Yeah.
And
feel better?
I feel great, man. I feel great, and it's it's not an ego thing at all. You just look in the mirror and go, oh, that's the guy I remember. That's the guy that I used to be.
I'll tell you, carrying weight, and I'm nuts about it, so I don't ever get that high or high at all. But like just that, it literally just to feel that on you. You don't know who you are anymore.
You don't know who you are. You can't fit in any clothes.
Yeah, it's.
And when I went to the Portly shop, that was the end of that. And I did. What was I there for? I had to get a jacket. I was going to. And the guy says to me, "Yeah, can't get you into this jacket, Phil. It looks like it's tall and portly for you." And so I went. I found one in Camarillo. And it was a sort of a dusty place with a guy coming out of the back with a tape measure. Oh, hi!
Yeah.
And it just, just to give me a jacket, and I was just a fat ass. And I said, no, I messed with, I didn't know how to do it. How do I exercise? What am I doing?
Yeah.
Finally, a friend of mine said, it's the food you're eating, man. You can go out and exercise all you want if you're not. So that's when I said, well, all right, I'll just do the 2,000 calories a day. That's what I did. And
good, man.
And it's a bitch, but it works. It works, man.
And your everything's going to be better because of it.
Right.
Well, Jesus, man.
I thank you so much for having me in, man. This is fantastic.
It was great talking to you. We got a lot done. Got a lot covered. I learned some things.
Yeah.
And I think some people, I think, it's interesting to talk to guys like you who are real innovators and, sharing some of your process. I think because there are people that you've inspired. There are people that want to do the type of radio and take the kind of chances with podcasts that don't necessarily do it. They don't quite realize how fucking easy it is. I'll tell you though, and you know this as well as I do, that, if you're going to do a podcast, just get a good microphone.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're still at it, and I'm glad this whole new world is working for you. Thanks, Phil.
Oh, it's a great thing, man.
That's it. That's our show. Thank you for listening. As always, I appreciate it. Fucking love Phil Hendrie. Go find his podcast, PhilHendrieShow.com. He's got all his archives there, man. He's got it all of it. Go listen to a genius. Go listen to a wizard of the medium of radio. And where you want to see me? Where do you want to see me? I'm going to be at the Ice House June 2nd. That's this Sunday. In Pasadena, California. I'm going to be at Stand Up Live in Phoenix, Arizona, doing stand-up on June 6th. That's next Thursday. I'll be doing the book event in Washington, D.C. on June 11th at the 6th and I Temple. I will be doing a book event at the Barnes & Noble in Union Square, New York City, June 12th, Wednesday. Be doing the Bryant Park Summer Reading Series in New York, June 13th. I'll be at the Harvard Bookstore at the Brattle Theater, where I saw Spalding Gray swimming to Cambodia when I was in college, June 14th, doing a book event. Going to do that Paley Center event with some of the writers of Maron here in Los Angeles on June 18th. Again, all these are available. All the links are available at WTFpod.com. Did I mention that? Go to WTFpod.com for all these links. I'll be at Helium Comedy Club in Buffalo, New York, June 20th through 22nd. I'll be Zanies in Nashville, July 20th and July 21st. Look, go. I'll be at the main stage in Chicago in August, the 1st through the 4th. Go to WTF Pod. Get all your WTF Pod needs met. WTFpod.com. Do that. Will you? I'm going to do some more characters. This is my Monkey the Cat character. What's going on?